channel, right channel, center.
VTuber 一問一答自己紹介
Yeah, and the tape's
それじゃあ
rolling.
行くよせーのお名前は
Katt Phloxworthy.
呼び方は
Just Cat is fine.
あなたは何系 VTuber?
Nerdy cat girl who features space
誕
flight.
生日は
May 4th.
年齢は
Older than Pneumatic.
性別は
Transgender
身
female.
長は
4'11".
出身は
Sacramento County.
チャームポイントは
Zylog hair clip.
突然ですがモノマネどうぞ
Yeah, what's up, Dash?
活動場所は
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube.
はじめの挨拶
Thank you for joining me.
終わりの挨拶
Bye.
星マークは
な
配信タグは
Catlight feed.
ファンアートは
Cat pics.
ファンネームは
Cat's a priz.
好きな色は
Iris indigo.
好きなことは
Vintage computers and
得
video.
意なことは
Technology.
ここで一言愛の告白好
I love you.
きな食べ物は
Ethnic foods.
好きな飲み物は
Craft soda.
好きな漫画は
Pizza 10.
好きなアニメは
Planet.
好きなゲームは
Left 4 Dead 2.
好きな音楽は
Classic rock.
苦手なことは
Human stupidity.
尊敬するのは
Spacefaring people.
叶えたい夢は
ISS crew
最後にみんな
interview.
に一言どう
Thanks
ぞ
so much for your support and a final status check.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur.
Go Katt Phlox.
You have permission to launch.
3, 2, 1. RD-180 ignition. Booster ignition and liftoff of Atlas V and Centaur. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me. Hi, Katt Phloxworthy here. Thank you so much, Luna, for the raid. Let me give you a real quick shout out. Stand by. Let's see. Whoa, I need to actually find myself in the correct window first. And also, thanks for thanks so much for it's Michael 133 for the follow. And welcome to Workshop and Labs. I'm hoping you enjoy your stay here. Okay. And of course,
Send me letters, will you?
one of your mouse streams. Oh, that's always so fun to watch. Just a bit of, before we go on, just want to give you a quick bit of info. Luna and I met on Saturday at OffKai Expo. Very, very, very nice person. I really am so glad I got the chance to meet her. Plus, on top of that, I met so many wonderful people at OffKai during my time there. It was a blast. I really, really enjoyed it. And on top of that, working on staff there, I met so many people, including several other VTubers I actually have known, including most notably Nyaru. She is an absolute sweetheart. She worked the community stage. And I'm glad you had a great time, Luna. I was watching a bit of your stream. I was sort of listening to it as I was setting things up. Another thing, originally I wanted to start the stream at 9, but one of the tablets that I use for in lieu of a stream deck, running something called DeckMate, which connects to Sammy, which was forked from the Yorn board a while back. I'm not going to go into that right now, but that's apparently a bit of a thing. In any event, what happened was I looked at this display and it was like, why is it so discolored? And I looked at it and I thought something's not right here. And I looked at this, I pick it up and I look on the side. It's like, oh no, don't tell me it's got spicy pillow syndrome. I don't know if it's a problem. We just had our first couple 100-degree heat days here in Sacramento. Today it got it up to about 105. Yeah, I can't wait till next year either. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really, really, really enjoyed it. It was great. Lots of wonderful people to meet, and saw lots of VTubers, both in virtual form as well as in real life. And of course Luna was one of the ones I met, and yeah, it was a hot one today here too. Yeah, I know. I'll bet it was, and I imagine that's not exactly making things very comfortable in that meat suit of yours. Yeah, and yeah, it was good to see you there. And I also met a mutual friend of ours practically the minute I arrived at OffKai on a week ago tomorrow for day 0, just to get ready to set up. None other than Puzzle Pulsar. And he's a great guy. I really, really enjoyed talking with him. And one of the things that we did on Saturday morning, before the first panel would come up, is that basically we tried to watch the most recent launch attempt, which was on Saturday morning before the first panel, which was Vivi-chan the Dragon. And before I continue, the normal rule, I just tagged it in here. You may or may not necessarily see the tag on there. If you don't, you may wish to refresh the page. But I've rescinded the rule, no talking about other VTubers or streamers on stream, because we're talking OffKai, and that rule just sort of keeps that talk from coming. And so that is rescinded for the duration of this stream. So, but this isn't the only thing we're doing, because one of the things I was going to say, what do Boeing, United Launch Alliance, NASA, and OffKai all have in common? Well, 3 of them have something in common. One of the, with the remaining one, the only Venn diagram that can actually fit all 4 of those is this very stream. Yep, damn right we're nerds. Yeah, we're all nerds, and I like this, and I want this to be a safe place for all of us nerdy people. Sure wish I could have gone to OffKai someday. Have to go one of these things. A bunch of homemade chemical pen lights. Oh yeah, the like glow sticks and stuff like that. OffKai with a side of Starliner scrubs, delicious. Well, this time, unfortunately, I could not cover it live in the morning. Puzzle Pulsar did cover it live this morning. I'm going to go ahead and cover it as a replay, with a bit of spicing from my OffKai experiences. So I'm glad you guys are here, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and start this. I'm going to start this right around the the L minus 15 minutes 22 seconds there. It's sitting at T minus 4 minutes and holding, which is when Atlas V and Centaur enter the terminal count. And right around the T minus 8 minute, or actually I think it's either 8 or 7, I wish I could remember off the top of my head, that's when they do the final readiness poll, just to make sure all systems, the range, the vehicle, the payload, which would ordinarily be like a satellite or anything like that, but this time it is the first crewed mission since the end of the Mercury program in 1963 with MA9, piloted by L. Gordon Cooper. So yeah, that was like 61 years ago. Can you believe that? It's a little more than 61 years ago was the last ever Atlas powered crewed flight. Only this time it's a crew of 2, and the Starliner could actually seat as many as a crew of 4, just like Crew Dragon. So anyway, L minus 7 minutes last time I checked. Okay, thank you. That's from KF16 over on YouTube. So anyway, let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the recording here, because right around that time they're going to be doing some stuff on the loops. So stand by.
After more than about 2 minutes, including Tampa on the west coast of Florida, the southeast corner of Georgia, might be able to see the Atlas Centaur separation.
And there's what they're actually saying. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard, you can actually see the ascent as it goes up.
Jones pulled his team, the NASA operations manager,
15 minutes.
and all of them are go.
Flight. Channel 1 and air to ground 1 are now merged, going to air to ground 1.
Roger.
And at this point, they're getting ready to do a lot of comm loop checks just to make sure everything's working, including ground to air to ground and air to air,
Those are
as well as air to control. Air to control.
I have you loud and clear also.
There's Butch Wilmore in front and Sunita Williams, who christened this vehicle Calypso after Jacques-Yves Cousteau's research vessel of the same name.
Houston, Starliner, loud clear.
Houston has you loud and clear on air to ground 1.
Although Atlas V has a Centaur stage, it is arguably not an Atlas since they got rid of the balloon tank, 1.5 stage booster construction. Yeah, that's right, because starting with John Glenn's launch, which was our first American orbital flight. Let's go. Let's check this before we get into that.
Related equipment. The crew will perform hatch operations and transfer emergency equipment. They will also evaluate the vehicle and transfer cargo while in a docked configuration. They'll conform functionality of manual piloting and deorbit with a successful separation of the crew module from the service module. And finally, they will demonstrate Starliner's entry and descent. 13 minutes and 24 seconds from only the 6th time NASA astronauts will launch on a new spacecraft designed for crew. And if you're curious about the previous 5 flights, we have you covered. Check out our video here.
And I believe they're talking about Mercury, Gemini. There's Mercury with that's a Redstone booster.
3 was the first test flight. Alan Shepard, May 5th, 1961.
Gemini,
that's Gemini.
3 with astronauts Gus Grissom and John Young.
And that one was named the Molly
March
Brown
23rd,
after the unsinkable Molly Brown. There's a musical of the same name by
Apollo
Meredith
7,
Wilson.
October 11th, 1968.
Apollo 7 featuring Wally Schirra and 2 other astronauts who more or less mutinied.
STS-1.
The STS-1. I remember watching this and being absolutely spellbound.
1981.
My first ever space flight I'd ever actually got to watch. And there's a Falcon 9 with Crew Dragon, and that was the first ever Crew Dragon that actually was crewed.
And then, of course,
and there's Sunita Williams suiting up.
Crew flight test with Butch Wilmore, and Sunny Williams.
You know, Mike, 12 minutes and 15 seconds to go. How are you feeling?
I am excited. I'm grateful to ULA and Boeing and NASA team that we are sharing.
They just closed the visors on there. They're about ready to retract the access arm. We did get to see that during the countdown. Actually got that far when we were watching on the screens at OffKai Expo in panel 1.
Certified to ferry people to and from the International Space Station. So with 11 minutes and 46 seconds to go, let's send it back over to ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicke to walk us through the final moments of today's launch countdown. Let's do it, guys.
Let's do it, Megan. We just heard the Starliner readiness poll is a go. We know the crew's visors are down now, so we are moving.
Sounds like that they did a readiness poll on the Starliner itself.
This is an instantaneous launch.
And incidentally, the RD-180 ignition, booster ignition, and liftoff, as well as the imagery from that particular the opener from my opener, that is actually from OFT2.
Eventually reaching speeds of more than 17,500 miles per hour.
The Go Atlas Go Centaur is from one of the.
And we are going to be watching
one of the previous. I forget the one. It's for one of the vehicles that actually senses any kind of thermal signatures from nuclear missiles that are being launched.
Right on cue. Crew access arm about to start moving away from the spacecraft. And Dylan, we will watch it move very slowly.
Now we're looking at the vehicle from within the sometimes known as the white room for some people. That is for some systems. This is about to. There it goes. The crew access arm is moving away ahead of launch.
But we could, in the event of an emergency, redeploy it in less than 15 seconds.
It's amazing that it can do that. We hope to not have to ever see that happen. After liftoff today,
And this will
Ray
also
and
be the
Jim
first
will continue
American
commentary from
capsule,
Houston through ascent,
not spacecraft.
separation,
That
and
distinction
orbital
belongs to the
insertion
space shuttle, but the first
We will
American
have the shot
capsule
of Butch
to
and Sunny
land on
inside the
land as opposed
Starliner
to
until the
splashing
moment
down.
of launch, and then we will get it again when we get to the ISS.
-10 minutes. Flight verify CST-100 on internal power.
They
Verify.
just transferred power to internal
Starliner,
aboard
configure
CST-100
order for launch.
Starliner. They just received the clearance for launch.
All right, the spacecraft is running
Although
completely
Atlas
on
V
its
has a
own now.
Centaur stage, and it is arguably not an
And
Atlas
they're
ever since they first
configuring
got rid of the
ordnance for
balloon
launch. That
tank
means the
and or the
devices that
1.5 stage
initiate
booster
our
construction.
separation
That's
events
right,
are
that's
ready
right,
to
that's
support
right.
both
Because
nominal and
basically,
contingency
early versions of the
operations
Atlas, you actually had it
that
actually gained structural integrity from actually having
happen or could
propellant on
happen
board.
during ascent.
They probably put stringers in there just to give it some rigidity.
So, Lauren,
And
we're just about
apparently,
2.5 minutes now away
one of the
from
things
our
I just found out
terminal status
also
check.
before starting the
The
stream,
terminal cast status check
IFT4
the
is
final
launching
report from each
tomorrow,
operator
and I
indicating
didn't
their system,
know.
whether it be a ground control system or
But
a
I
launch
can't
vehicle
cover
system,
that
is
either.
ready to
I'm going to
execute
be
the
waking
final
up and
4
getting
minutes
ready
of
to
the
go to
countdown
work.
to launching the rocket. At this point, if there were an issue, the anomaly team would be discussing it, but nothing like that has happened right now. All's
T-minus
quiet.
9 minutes and
I'm
counting.
expecting to hear all members of the team
And thank you
report
so much
go
for
when
joining
full
me,
flight chief launch conductor Doug
anonymous commander,
actually
and
hearing
welcome
on
to
the
the
side
workshop and
channel
labs.
that
Thanks for
they
the
are
follow.
preparing for the launch vehicle systems poll. This is the long one. A lot of people view this
That
as
starts
a
starts at
poll. It's kind of fun
at
to
L
listen
minus 7
to
minutes,
them list off each system.
and
and
the
then
countdown
that team
timer
will
is
give a
actually at T
final
minus 4
go
minutes and
or no
holding.
go for launch.
They changed from pressure stabilized balloon tanks to more traditional isogrid tanks for Atlas V. Atlas III was the last with a balloon tank
And we
booster.
will
Oh
be
yeah,
able to watch
and also
cameras on the
Atlas III
rocket
was powered,
today
I
and
believe,
live
also by the
telemetry
RD-180.
feedback will
And right
provide
now the
a
RD-180
real-time
has
look
had a
at the
perfect success
spacecraft
record
model
on
when
Atlas.
Video isn't possible during the ascent as it moves through the dynamic phases.
Coming up on T minus 8 minutes, counting. They just retracted the crew access arm ahead of launch.
L minus
And
8 minutes.
There you go. L minus 8 minutes, and coming up on the readiness poll, starting at L minus 7 minutes.
Under 8 minutes before Butch and Sunny head back to a place they consider home. Both of them have spent 2 different stints of about 6 months on the International Space Station, and they are thrilled.
And there
to be
you see a
going
lot
back
of the
for a third
umbilicals, which provided power, propellants. Just above
Sunny
the
told me
American
she
flag, I believe, is the
cried
Centaur
the last
stage,
time she
and you
left
see
the
an
space
aero
station
skirt that's
because
going to
she
be
didn't know
removed,
she would
that's going to
ever
be
go back.
jettisoned
So this
shortly
flight
after
is a dream
staging.
for her.
LC arm control.
Go ahead.
Crew access arms stowed for launch.
Roger.
They just called stowed
LC
for
switch
launch.
to
That
ready
means
position.
they
All
can.
steps are
That
complete.
means
Try
everything
status
is good
check.
for launch. They have to pull the arm away, otherwise it would be in the way.
Let's
And I
listen
believe
to
this
Chief
would
Launch
also
Instructor
work
Doug
with
Lebo
Vulcan
conduct that final
Centaur
terminal
crewed
count status
launches.
check as we prepare for launch.
Coming up on L minus 7
L minus
minutes
7
and
minutes.
counting. Readiness
Status
poll
check to
underway.
proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion,
Go.
hydraulics,
Go.
pneumatics,
Go.
LO2,
Go.
water,
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion,
Go.
pneumatics,
Go.
LO2,
Go.
LH2,
Go.
has gas,
Go.
electrical systems, airborne,
Go.
ground,
Go.
facility,
Go.
RFFTS,
Go.
flight control,
Go.
GCQ,
Go.
op support,
Go.
comm,
Go.
umbilicals,
Go.
arm control,
Go.
ECS,
Go.
redline monitor,
Go.
quality,
Go.
op safety manager,
Go.
ULA safety officer,
Go.
vehicle system engineer,
Go.
anomaly chief,
Go.
range coordinator,
Clear to proceed.
flight director,
Houston flight is go.
Starliner,
Starliner go.
launch director,
You have permission to launch.
proceeding
There
with
are the
count.
calls. Vehicle.
ALC, verify T0 is set for 14:52:15
Stand by.
Zulu.
Verified.
They're just making sure that everything is set for the appropriate time, which was about
Starliner, that is
7:52 a.m. this morning, Pacific time.
Thank you, LC. For everybody listening, just a thought. Sonny and I, as we were traveling to the pad, we saw many American flags, and many of you were waving flags at us. And then as we reached the pad, we look up, and of course there's that American flag on the side of the white room. Also one on the side of the rocket itself. And we know that that represents unity and resilience and unified efforts for the common good. And that's what Sonny and I have witnessed this last month. Each of you displaying what this nation's forefathers envisioned, a people committed to God, family, and country, a people who use their gifts and talents for the common good and are passionate and tough. And we all know that when the going gets tough, and it often does, the tough get going. And you have. And Sonny and I are honored to share this dream of space
We're
flight
about to release the hold.
with each and every one of you. So with that, LC, let's get going. Now let's put some fire in this rocket, and let's push it to the heavens where all these tough Americans have prepared it to be.
Let's go, Calypso. Take us to space and back.
LC flight, Starliner configured for terminal count.
On my mark.
There's the configuration call.
Minus 4 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting. They have just released the hold.
355.
Resumed for on-time liftoff.
Just beautiful words from Butch there. No better example of unity on this planet.
And what you'll see, this is the N22 configuration. No fairing because the vehicle itself has its own aerodynamic
in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Aerodynamic devices. 2 meaning the first 2 meaning the number 2 SRBs, and the second 2 meaning the number of RL-10s on the Centaur stage. They're in the process of pressurizing the RP-1 tank in the Atlas stage. It uses RP-1 or refined petroleum 1.
Starliner's LAS prop valves are configured for launch.
LAS being launch abort system.
To be open in the case of an abort from the pad.
3 minutes.
They're getting ready to terminate oxygen replenishment on the first stage.
Securing LO2 topping.
They just secured LO2 on the first stage. You just saw all the stuff going in, and then pretty soon they're going to secure LH2 and LO2 on the Centaur stage, and then start pressurizing those tanks before too long. T-minus 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting.
Flight software is in ascent mode. It is now set for the uphill climb.
And apparently, they enter into max Q even before breaching Mach 1 on this particular kind of flight profile. T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
159. Vehicle internal.
Now it's off. Power's been transferred from ground sources to the batteries aboard the vehicle.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
They just secured both LH2 and LO2, the fuel and oxidizer for Centaur's RL-10s respectively.
137. FTS armed.
They just are in the flight termination system. So in case something goes wrong, they can destroy the vehicle, but they will actually use the LAS to get them away from it before actually destroying the vehicle.
120. OCU's armed. SCS count started. EDS ascent.
At T-minus 1 minute, they'll do one final call. They'll do one final check of the range. And it'll say, Rock, report range status.
Roger.
Here we go, T-minus 1 minute.
That call may mean if the emergency detection system on Atlas detects something.
Rock report range status.
Range green.
The range is green. They can now launch through the corridor.
PLP started.
And the next call is at T-minus 25 seconds, which is checking of the Atlas, Centaur, and Starliner. Make sure everything's good to go.
Atlas at flight fresh.
They've just finished pressurizing the Atlas tanks. It's shortly followed by the Centaur tanks. T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
Centaur at flight press.
There's the call for Centaur. T-minus 25 seconds.
Status check. Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Go Starliner. Godspeed, Butch and Sonny.
Ten,
9,
nine,
8,
eight,
7,
seven,
6,
six,
5, 4,
four,
3,
three,
2,
two,
1,
one,
0.
ignition.
RD-180 ignition, booster
And
ignition, and
liftoff.
liftoff of Atlas V and Centaur carrying the CST-100 Starliner, christened Calypso by her crew, and the vehicle has cleared the tower. It's now pitching down range to place it above water in the event of an abort scenario. And at about 50 seconds, they will be breaching max Q, which is the highest amount of aerodynamic pressure the vehicle will experience as it goes through the denser portions of the lower atmosphere, followed by Mach 1, which is breaking the sound barrier, and Mach 1 being the speed of sound. This burn lasts for about 4.5 minutes, after which point they will drop the Atlas. Actually, first of all, the SRBs burn about a minute and a half, and will be jettisoned just before burnout.
Dynamic pressure where the forces of air friction are highest, which and Sunny will shortly be passing through Mach 1, where the speed of sound.
They're calling max Q. There's the SRB, one of the two SRBs on the side by Aerojet Rocketdyne. And as they're getting ready to burn out, they will jettison them. Seeing bits of ice coming off, likely from the Centaur stage, which is all cryogenic.
You got a good throttle up.
They're calling throttle up after
Starliner and Atlas.
they apparently throttle down before breaching Mach 1.
Coming up in less than 20 seconds, the solid rocket boosters will run out of fuel and burn
Actually, it's 2.5 minutes that they burn. That the SRBs burn. They're in the process of getting ready to burn out, and just before they burn out, they will go ahead and jettison those two SRBs.
Now that the fuel in the solid rocket boosters has been depleted, the Atlas main booster stage will be continuing its burn for about the next 3 minutes.
Here we go. We're about ready to see SRB jettison.
Good handle.
That call, good handle, from Capcom Joshua Kutrick, indicating that the crew now has the ability to initiate an abort manually if needed. All looking good so far. Now 2 minutes into
there they go. There
flight,
goes one of the SRBs.
Jettison at the 2-minute and 40-second mark.
Looks like they're getting ready to do a gravity turn. And the vehicle, the RD-180 will continue to burn for another 2 minutes or so. There's some more ice breaking off. At which point they will start to before they actually do BECO, booster engine cutoff, they will start to throttle down to maintain about 3 G's worth of acceleration on the two crew in the vehicle.
Seeing Starliner through its first 90 seconds of flight. Team on the ground here.
After which they will do BECO or booster engine cutoff, where they will separate the two stages, then get ready to start the Centaur's RL-10s. And one thing to note about the RL-10, you'll see 2 nozzles on there, but it's actually one engine with 2 combustion chambers. It actually is fed by one common turbo pump, and it is a closed cycle, oxygen-rich pre-burner propelled cycle engine. Basically, they put the entire oxygen supply and a little bit of the fuel through the pre-burner, which then drives the turbo pump, sending everything else into the combustion chamber.
Atlas booster now throttling back to limit the G-forces on Butch and Sunny.
There's the call on the, there's a throttle back, throttle down call for limiting G's.
On the ground.
They're doing anywhere between 3 and 4 G's. Should be getting BECO within the next 30 seconds. And that black stuff you're seeing is soot, because this is a hydrocarbon-based fuel. In this case, it's a kerosene-based fuel. And we're about ready to go to, there's a graphic. They're about ready to shut down the engines and then separate and do pre-start on RL-10. There we have BECO. Now we have separation, getting ready for pre-start on the RL-10s. And we have ignition of the RL-10s. And this burn will last about 8 minutes. Excuse me, about 7 minutes.
Open, you have sublimator act.
And the engines are gimbling just to maintain a constant course.
Reporting that they saw the ascent cover on top of Starliner that's been protecting the spacecraft's docking system through its climb into orbit. They saw that jettisoned as planned.
They jettisoned the nose cap on the top of Starliner.
And now the second stage's 2 Centaur engines have ignited to continue pushing Starliner into space, fueled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen.
And unlike most engines, this uses what is called the expander cycle. What they do is, you see those little ribs on there? Those are cooling channels. What happens is as the engine burns through its propellant, the liquid hydrogen that comes out of the tanks goes through those cooling loops and cools down the engine bells. And as it's doing that, it's doing a phase change from liquid to a gas, and that is driving the turbopump, driving more fuel and oxidizer into the combustion chamber.
Plus 31.
Atlas control reporting booster performance offset of 31 seconds of ISP, or specific impulse, relative to its design baseline of around 450.
Wait, RL-10 sharing a combustion chamber? No, I'm sorry. I meant did I say RL-10? I meant the RD-180. The RD-180 is actually based on the RD-170, which powers the Zenit booster, whether used alone or alongside the rest of the Energia stack, 4 of which would launch Buran on its sole flight back in 1987, I believe. Either 87 or 89, I forget which one. And that's a 4-chambered engine. Yes, I did. In fact, this is from KF16 over on YouTube. Yeah, I did in fact mean the RD-180. And the one thing to bear in mind, the way they launched it, this is actually going to be a very long suborbital trajectory. So in case something goes wrong and they have to abort the flight now, they can actually do what is called a free return, basically meaning they don't necessarily need to use much in the way of propellant. And in fact, that's how Apollo 13 came back from the moon after they had the explosion in the service module.
Capcom Joshua Kutrick continuing to pass good news up to Starliner's crew. Last one reporting that the Centaur upper stage remains in good condition,
best engine. The reason why
pushing them into orbit.
Why of the skirt in my VTuber design used to be used eventually. Looks like an RL-10 nozzle. Oh, that's gonna be kind of cool to look at. I can't wait to see that. An RL-10 nozzle as a skirt. I like that.
St. John's open.
And we see some reactor control system firing, thruster firings. They should, before too long...
First guided abort range, where Starliner would direct itself towards a specific location in the event of abort. In this case, just off the coast of St. John's, the capital of the
We've got about 4 minutes left in the burn. And inclination, they're going for a 51.6 degree inclination against the equator, which is to match the International Space Station's inclination. There's like 15 other aerospace weapons to be packed into the skirt somewhere.
11:5 to 11:52. Good perf. You're at 34 to 36 seconds.
We're getting close to. I think that's going to be the MECO time.
34 seconds.
That call letting the crew know that the main engine cutoff, MECO, should happen just about on time, about 12 minutes into today's flight. Another good indication that
the final product will be available for people
exactly
as enjoyments in 3 to 5 business
main engine
millennia.
cutoff is a major milestone marking Starliner's arrival on orbit.
And you notice that the aeroskirt has since been jettisoned.
With the spacecraft continuing to perform well, make its way towards orbit.
No action, Starliner, on the LCL. That's just the system coming up into controlling mode.
Outstanding. No action.
And the beeps that you're hearing are what are called Quindar tones.
With the
Basically,
main engine
it's
cut off, the next
in
step
the
will be
past they
the
were
launch vehicle
actually actively
separation. That's
used
set
in
to
order
occur
to
just short of
say
15
make sure
minutes
that
after
people
launch, when
know when to
Starliner will
speak,
separate
going
from
up
the
or
rocket
down.
and fly free in space for
And
the first
nowadays
time.
they don't. They at least they're only mainly indicators now. They don't actually serve any active role other than to say this is when the communications actually begin or end. But that actually was actually used in the past to actually control how they work, how the communications work between Capcom and the ground.
Flight Dynamics officer reporting that at this point, Starliner could potentially make an abort landing off the coast of Ireland.
Yep, right around the Shannon point. That sounds about right.
And they're, again, all continuing well, so we're not expecting to need that abort.
As Starliner is rapidly approaching orbital velocity, the support region is only available for just over 1 minute, where Starliner would just continue up to orbit after that.
And the other note about that orbit, once they've been able to determine that everything can proceed normally, they'll use thruster firings on Starliner herself to actually start to augment the orbit, getting ready to place it into, first of all, a circularized orbit, and then they'll use what are called Holman maneuvers to change the orbital phasing against the International Space Station. When they first launch, I believe the space station is actually behind them, and then they start to catch up with them, or the station catches up to them more accurately.
30 seconds to go. Now until
about half a minute left in the Centaur burn, at which point when the engine shut off, we will have MECO, or main engine cutoff. And RL-10, the RL-10 design is over 60 years old. It has been around for a very long time. And we have MECO. And we see thruster firings to even out any transients that have developed during the course of MECO.
Nominal MECO Starliner.
And they're at the 51.6 degree inclination against the equator.
And with that nominal MECO call, that's main engine cutoff. We've got good energy, meaning a good velocity for continuing to orbit, and a good plane, meaning Starliner's trajectory is aligned with the International Space Station for rendezvous tomorrow.
And with that, Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams return to orbit. Individually, they are both extremely experienced astronauts.
14:5 to 14:52.
14:52.
Yeah, one of my colleagues from
the combined total of 489 days in space between them. Starliner's also
wow,
the
that's a
third
lot of
spacecraft
days.
that they've launched in. Both have traveled to the International Space Station via space shuttles and Soyuz, and are now well on their way to repeating the journey via Starliner. It's also worth noting that Williams' role as pilot marks the first time that a woman has crewed a flight test of an orbital spacecraft.
That is very cool.
Just a few seconds ago, you heard Capcom Joshua Kutrick calling up to Butch and Sunny. With the expected time, Starliner will separate from Centaur at about 14 minutes, 52 seconds into flight.
Just over a minute and a half, just under a minute and a half, excuse me, away from separ from the Centaur stage.
That is actually the last major milestone for Starliner's ascent. All the hard work is done, but we need for Starliner to be flying on its own before it can begin heading towards the International Space Station. There's a slight pause in the action here while Centaur repressurizes and does some attitude control. We'll get into the right orientation to send Centaur on its way, and then jettison it and move into the right orientation.
Less than a minute until the separation,
which will come about 31 minutes into flight.
And
no action on the cabin temp Starliner.
No action.
I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, they were what they were getting ready to do is they will be separating in about 20 or so seconds and be free flying and getting ready to make the maneuvers necessary to first of all start orbital operation. Here we go. There goes Starliner separating away from the Centaur stage, with a cluster of thrusters on the bottom and all throughout its circumference.
LVCEP confirmed.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Speaking to one of my colleagues from OffKai staff, I couldn't cover it this morning because I had to go to work. I was actually at work at the time that it lifted off.
Providing Butch and Sunny
I was catching it near the very end of the Centaur burn.
That is not the end of today's orbit activity, though. The team will now be getting ready for the orbital.
Like I was saying earlier, my friend Puzzle Pulsar, whom I met at the con, actually covered it live on his channel this morning.
Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore will be getting their tablets out and doing a few other activities to get the Starliner ready for that. And that will be one of the that will be the first in a series of burns that will set.
And the next event on the timeline will happen in about 15 minutes, where they'll start to do the orbital insertion insertion burn to circularize the orbit. Because, like I said, this was originally a very long suborbital trajectory. Basically, it's at orbital velocity, but it is actually deliberately set to be a suborbital velocity. So in case something goes wrong.
With astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams on board, launched from Florida, the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41 at 9:52 a.m. Central, 10:52 a.m. Eastern today, and they have now
Starliner,
made it into
your
orbit.
nominal TDRS show MDL is active. You have good targeting for OI.
And they just made contact with the Tracking and Data Relay Satellites, or TDRS, so they can pass information, including especially the time. They do time sync to make sure that they're in the appropriate time since launch. And apparently it was this inability to contact the TDRS satellites during OFM1. OFT1, rather, I'm sorry, where they ended up burning enormous amounts of propellant when they shouldn't have.
Tracking relay data satellites that Starliner uses to talk to the ground, and the flight controllers on the ground are seeing the dynamic.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you could relay a message to our brethren at ULA.
We're all listening.
And the TIG, I forget what that is. I believe that's when they do the injection, the orbital injection burn, and that's at about T plus 31 minutes.
We all copy all and really appreciate the words.
I'm going to back that up because sometimes we get to hear nice words from people. Oops, hang on. Sorry, guys. Let me try getting this in the right place. Hang on. This is actually a much longer stream. There we go. That's the actual. I meant to do this.
59. Launch enabled. 137. FTS armed.
To our brethren at ULA.
We're all listening. Go ahead.
Here we go.
Yeah, they've been a member of the family for a long time, but now it's official, and we want to welcome them to human spaceflight.
We all copy all and really appreciate the words.
There we go. I actually got it pretty damn close that time. That's
and
ULA.
Starliner, we are on the tablets and in insertion monitor.
There's Anita Williams.
Copy tablets, we're with you, insertion monitor.
So the crew have their tablets out, so no longer using the paper procedures now that the vehicle has stopped moving so quickly.
They use all built-in tablets, as it were, during Crew
so
Dragon flights.
Things that the crew's going to do now, mostly just prepare the inside of the cockpit, so they are looking at the right data to prepare for the upcoming orbital insertion burn. The vehicle itself has done a few things recently. Started to power on the solar rays on the back of Starliner and turning off several of the thrusters that are no longer needed at this phase of flight.
And MET in that point on the counter below stands for mission elapsed time. It goes originally T plus while the vehicle is launching.
Starliner
Now it's
going
MET.
To start to orient itself in the direction it needs to do the orbital insertion burn. And the crew inside the vehicle will be turning the wireless access point on and allow them to stream some of the data from the spacecraft onto their procedure tablets.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I was just thinking about that, and first thing I thought to myself,
Last arm is off. Backup control switches, enable 1 on, enable 2 off. SMRCS is the mode.
spacecraft board streaming. I like that.
We copy off. Enable 1 is on, enable 2 is off. SMRCS, you're in a good config.
Good config.
Oh, and I need to get the chats back up. Bankroll space program is very...
EV targets are on board and good.
UDX.
Playing Kerbal Space Program is very illustrative experience for seeing how that works. Orbital rendezvous can certainly be counterintuitive. Slow down to orbit faster. Yeah, it does, because what happens is that as you ascend, you need to you actually need to start slowing down just a tiny bit, because basically what's happening is instead of chasing after the International Space Station, it catches up to you. That's what they're doing at this point, is they're altering the orbit to come up and meet the vehicle behind it. Or when Soyuz launches from Baikonur Cosmodrome, it's usually over it's over somewhere over Africa or somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean.
Quiet as Starliner gets into position for the orbital insertion burn. That's still about 10 minutes away. Starliner is actually designed to be pretty autonomous, and in fact docked with the space station on its last trip around without the help of any crew on board. But we do still want to know that if needed, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams could take control and manually abort the spacecraft's approach to the station if they needed to. So to prove that, one of the few things on their agenda after they reach orbit will be to perform a test of the manual piloting mode.
This test will involve first pointing Starliner's nose towards the Earth so that its communication antenna on the back of the service module is pointed at the satellites, the teeter satellites that allow it to communicate with the team on the ground. They'll then move Starliner so that its solar arrays are pointed at the sun, showing they can charge Starliner's internal batteries as needed. And they'll follow that up with a demonstration of the star trackers, one of the ways that Starliner determines where it is in space, pointing Starliner away from Earth so that the system, the Vesta system, can get a good look at the stars.
The next step will be for the crew to manually speed Starliner up and then slow back down, which will slightly raise and then lower their orbit and prove that they can manually break away from the orbit that the space station is in if they needed to. At that point, they can move on to the last items of the
still no
test.
action on your cabin temp. You're in a good config. It's 74 degrees in there. Yeah, that's just due to that T2 sensor sitting beside the light. So we're actually going to inhibit that particular sensor. We'll let you know when we bring it back online.
Okay, great. Looks like we're on our way to thrust align.
Denver.
And the one thing I was going to say...
Josh Kutrick calling up that the crew can ignore some alarms they're seeing on the temperatures inside Starliner. That's just a result of one of the sensors being next to a light that's causing it to show higher than it actually is. But it sounds like the crew are pretty comfortable and are getting into place for that orbital insertion.
And at some point, they're also going to get...
after they have manually broken away from the orbit of, proven that they can manually break away from the orbit of the space station, they are going to move on to the last items of their test for tonight. That's manually moving Starliner into the right orientation for re-entering the atmosphere, and then moving back into the attitude that will let them soak up some sun with the solar arrays and try a different method of manually charging the spacecraft's batteries. But again, once that all has to wait until after the orbital insertion burn. This is, again, the first of several burns that will put Starliner on its way to the International Space Station. We've still got about 6.5 minutes until we fire up the engines for that burn.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember what they were saying, but basically, one of the things I was going to say earlier...
Starliner, we did not see the hand controller deflection. Just wanted to know if you did that yet.
No, we'll get it now.
All good.
And the one thing I was going to try and say was, just like they do a suborbital launch with an albeit very long track. The space shuttle did much the same thing, partly as the ability to do an abort once around if necessary, although that mode has a very short window of opportunity. The abort to orbit is always the most preferred method once they're that far up into the flight profile. Now, what they would do, basically doing the suborbital trajectory has two purposes in the space shuttle program. One, give the space shuttle the ability to escape in case they need to get back to Earth in a hurry using a free return. Two, the other item is to dispose of the external tank, because there's no steering that thing once it's done, and we don't need it anymore. So what happens is that by the time it starts, after it's past the passes the apogee, which is the highest point, the perigee will actually take it right into somewhere right around Point Nemo, I think, which is the furthest point from any inhabited area of land on Earth, and that's where Mir was disposed of back in 2001.
Team here on the ground seeing that everything is looking like it's in the right configuration for the orbital insertion burn. Now less than 5 minutes away. Starliner is currently about 102 miles above the Mediterranean Sea, heading southeast over India in the next few minutes.
Starliner, good config for the OI burn.
Good config for OI.
And good config from the OI burn. Crew and ground controllers noting that Starliner is pointed in the direction it needs to for the OI burn. This should also be about the time that the crew are using their tablets for their procedures, also charging them, keeping them topped up for the rest of the rendezvous.
We unfortunately won't have a view of Williams and Wilmore as they work through this procedure. Although we had a view of them from inside the cabin on the ground, Starliner isn't able to send that view to us again until it gets to the International Space Station. So you'll be seeing this screen quite a bit as Starliner was getting into the right position for the burn, and actually just now you can see some of the engines firing that help it steer and move around in space, and you can also see what attitude it's in at any given time. Lots of good information on this screen.
It is. A lot of this information actually directly mimics the views that the crew is seeing, especially the one in the upper left-hand panel. That is an exact copy of the display the crew is using for their attitude directional indicator. It also covers what mode their translational hand controller and the translational pointing is in. On the left side, on the right side, the pointing guidance, which tells the Starliner in automated mode which direction to point, or when in manual mode, which direction the crew needs to move the vehicle, like we're going to do in some of the manual piloting maneuvers.
I remember what I was going to say from earlier. They were talking about astronavigation.
Camera conversation. There is a planned upgrade of the Mustang system.
They were talking about astronavigation. The SR-71 relied very heavily on it. This was before the days of GPS. They needed the plane flew so high it could actually see right into space. And in order to get really precise navigation, it could actually acquire several stars overhead and use that as navigation information sources.
While they're inside the cockpit.
Of course, nowadays we have GPS and other systems.
We should be able to see a little bit more around the
such as Europe's Galileo, Russia's GLONASS, and China's Beidou. Yes, that is. I found that kind of amusing when I heard about that, because of course we have a character in Genshin Impact so named.
Starliner is just under 30 minutes into today's flight. We've got about a minute and a half left to go into that orbital insertion burn. That will be kind of the final end cap, really, to today's ascent, which again took place at 10:52 a.m. Eastern when Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams launched inside the first Starliner to carry crew members on board from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41.
It used to be Cape Canaveral Air Force Station until, of course, the Space Force was formed.
They made it to orbit about 14 minutes later, and now we are just again waiting for this first of a series of burns that will set Starliner on its way to a rendezvous with the International Space Station.
About a minute away from the TIG.
Scheduled to take place at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Central tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to be rendezvousing with the Genshin Impact Global.
Global. About 40 seconds till the orbital insertion burn. This burn is going to take Starliner out of its slightly suborbital trajectory and push it up to an altitude that will allow us to catch up with ISS for a rendezvous later tomorrow.
Yeah, basically, I think what they're talking about when it comes to slowing down the track
those engines firing on this,
that Starliner draws on the ground in relation to its in relation to its altitude. Because, for example, if you go all the way up to about 25,000 miles, you will now have a completely stationary satellite, because that's the orbital altitude for a geostationary orbit, which is where a good many communication satellites are located.
In Houston, seeing 4 good OMACs, good burn.
There they go. They're in the process of doing the, and I think that yellow arrow is the vector where, which is where the actual, where the thrust is actually going, by and large, which is of course directly aft. And what that's going to do is it's going to raise the orbit, and also they're probably, I believe they're actually going to also circularize the orbit by changing the attitude. There's the burn. The burn is complete.
We take a look. That was a good OI burn. You're maneuvering to NavCal 1.
Everybody's happy.
Good OI burn. Going to NavCal 1.
And with that call-up, both crew and flight controllers agreeing that that was a good OI burn. I'm looking at the trajectory plot here in Mission Control. I see our trajectory.
It looks like ULA's job is done, so they're clearing out of their Mission Control.
For the next burn. Right now, Starliner is moving into NavCal mode, or NavCal attitude. That's going to be the first of several positions that Starliner, directions that Starliner points itself to track some of the stars from the Starliner and update the position inside of the position orientation of Starliner inside of its guidance, navigation, and control algorithms.
And of course, you're seeing lots of happy faces and cheers here in Florida. Everybody glad to see Starliner safely in orbit with Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams in tow. sending it on its way to the International Space Station for docking tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, Starliner safely on orbit, has conducted a good orbital insertion burn, and is on its way.
Okay, I think on that note, we're going to go ahead and return back to the chatting window. And I'm going to end the feed that's coming in I'm going to end the replay. So that was the first crewed flight powered by an Atlas booster since 1963, right around May-ish or so. That's when L. Gordon Cooper flew aboard Faith 7 on the MA9 mission. So that is definitely a milestone, and there won't be many of those because I believe there are like 16 or 17 RD-180 engines left. And basically they ULA stopped acquiring them from NPO Energomash, which is a Russian company, right after the invasion of Crimea. And they stopped getting technical support for those engines right around the time that Russia invaded Ukraine and started that war. So, and on top of that, I think right around that time during the invasion of Crimea, one of the things that got passed was a law that basically says any load that goes up that has national security interests aboard it may not be powered by foreign power. In this case, the Atlas V being a prime example of same, being powered by the Russian RD-180 engine. Nowadays, everything's going up on either, even though it's being launched out of New Zealand, the company itself is American, which is, in this case, Rocket Lab's Electron being powered by the Rutherford engine, even though the person after whom the Rutherford is named is a New Zealander. The company is considered an American company, despite having a Peter Beck, an actual Kiwi, as a CEO. Anyway, so the more recent stuff has been delivered up by way of Falcon 9, and coming up pretty soon. Now that they actually have launched the first Vulcan Centaur launch, which happened some months back. They'll start using those instead, which are now powered by the Blue Origin BE4 engines, which on top of that use a different fueling setup. They use liquid methane, although they call it LNG or liquefied natural gas, and liquid oxygen. After all these years, Starliner and ULA have finally launched the Crew. Yes, that basically it all can be summed up with these words: it's about damn time that happened. And speaking of Vulcan Centaur, another flight that's supposed to be taking place a little bit later is Star Chaser. I think is the name of that one. The one from Sierra Nevada Aerospace. Basically the third American option for they originally offered it as a crewed vehicle. It very much resembles the Boeing X-37B, but could actually be done a Dream Chaser. Thank you. I couldn't remember it. Thank you. But yeah, that's the particular vehicle I couldn't remember the name of. It was originally pitched as a crewed vehicle. It resembled, like I said, the Boeing X-37B. But actually could be crewed, but they ultimately lost out to CST-100 as well as, of course, Crew Dragon. But apparently that's actually coming back on the table because of what it took to get CST-100 Starliner into orbit finally. And in this case, it's going to be going up. The Dream Chaser is going up as a cargo vehicle, and it will have one thing that Cargo Dragon and Cargo Dragon 2 didn't have. It's a mix of basically a jettisonable compartment that burns up in the atmosphere, along with a return of more as well as the rest of it being returned to Earth, so that it can have another downmass capability other than SpaceX's Cargo Dragons. And right now, Cargo Dragon is the only vehicle capable of delivering down mass from the ISS, other than, of course, the Crew Dragon, and of course the Soyuz, which of course is the Russian vehicle. Their Progress, which is essentially based on the Soyuz, which is essentially an uncrewed Soyuz vehicle, is their freighter, which like Cargo Dragon 2 is based on a crewed vehicle. The only difference is that they, unlike Cargo Dragon, in either incarnation, the Progress was not designed to actually return to Earth intact. It actually burns up in the atmosphere, and so does Cygnus. And it and Progress and Cygnus have also another duty that they do when they're on the International Space Station, and that is to reboost reboost the station's orbit. They actually have the rocket firing capability to do that. Plus, on top of that, Cygnus has another capability, which is one thing I covered during my birthday stream, which was the ability to conduct experiments completely on its own, not even being birthed at the station. They can actually fly freely and do stuff there. They did a lot of combustion research in that particular mode as well, on one mission. And of course, it too, much like Progress and a portion of Dream Chaser, is designed to be able to take refuse from the International Space Station and burn it up as it re-enters the atmosphere. So that's on that. But anyway, let me make one quick change on the Twitch and YouTube streams, because we're gonna shift gears real quick here. Because we're now going to go switch phases to my experience at OffKai. And I need to do the same thing over on don't have anything similar on YouTube, so I'm just gonna have to call it entertainment. Yeah, Zatsudans, what the hell do you call them on YouTube? I know that's easy enough on Twitch, but damn it, what do you call them on YouTube? Anyway, point being, I got it taken care of. We're good to go here. So anyway, day one. Well, day zero, when you get technical. Day zero, of course, in relation to the con. Things that actually been happening before that. People started coming in on Wednesday, starting to do logistics, bringing stuff in, bringing equipment, bringing anything that may be considered consumables for the con itself, getting it deployed in place, and they're also starting to do some of the dry runs. And unfortunately, I didn't get to go there, and apparently they could have used more personnel for that. So, note to self: take the Wednesday off. Just figure how to get accommodations. So there's that. So I'm going to be doing that next year, for next year's OffKai. And of course, that's considered day -1. Day 0, which is the Thursday. Day -1 was a week ago today. Day 0 is a week ago tomorrow. That's the day before the con. That's when we do even more preparations. In my case, I did laundry. I got packed, got some other stuff together. I broke down my work machine, machine that I do some other work. I've been doing a lot of this stuff. Did a lot of behind the scenes stuff for OffKai long in advance of the show itself. So a lot of documents got written, diagrams created and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff, I did a lot of that. I did a lot of work ahead of OffKai. And in fact, the weeks before OffKai, I was almost literally, well, maybe not literally, but the point is I was practically burning the candle at both ends. Mainly because lately I'd been doing a lot of overtime at my workplace. I would go there, I'd get up at 4:15 in the morning, do my normal work, and I end up either doing one or two additional hours each day. and then come home, get on the computer, come home, get home, relax a little bit, eat something, and then in certain days I'd be going into meetings with people in my department, as well as checking in with other people just to see how they're doing, and also asking some of my fellow staffers, including several very specific ones who were helping me with various items like writing procedure for various things, because some of them had the one thing that I didn't have at the time, but I do have some of now, and that is OffKai experience. Basically, what worked, what didn't, what went significantly wrong, what went super well, and what went significantly wrong, and maybe ideas of how to prevent those. I went and started documenting a lot of that long before the show started. But anyway, they seems like a lot more. That seems like a lot more candle burning anymore, and it would be tantamount to a rocket engine. Yeah, like going from fuel-rich exhaust to engine-rich exhaust, kind of like what happened in the early days of Starship. Yeah, where you start seeing green exhaust, which is like, I don't think that's supposed to be happening. Anyway, yeah, point being is I have been so busy these last few weeks ahead of OffKai. I'd be working, in some cases I'm also talking with a colleague. We were going over the documents, and so it's like oxidizer-rich main combustion with liquid sodium injection TVC. Let's go, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I've been working so hard, and at times it's like, God damn it, I need my sleep. And even the weeks before I was talking to my roommate slash coworker, I figured I'd be able to give him a ride to the office, and his position is like, don't even bother. And he says that in a nice way, because it's like, it's your day off. I'll find my own way. And that was I'm grateful for that, because I needed to be able to get all my stuff done. I woke up a bit later than usual. I woke up at about the alarm went off at 4:15 like it normally does, but then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just gonna go sleep in for a bit. And I get up at about 6. I start getting things ready. I go out and I put some fuel in the car. Actually, that would be the last thing I do before leaving Sacramento. I go get packed, get the gear, get some of the gear that I'm using torn down. I'd already packed a good bunch of my stuff, my gear, my consumables for doing stuff like building Ethernet cables and what have you. Threw that in the car. I took my workstation apart that I was doing a lot of my stuff at. It used to be the encoder machine before I got these nicer machines. I had recently installed a nicer video card in it. I put in a GeForce GTX 1050i, Ti rather, and pretty nice machine. It's a Hewlett Packard Elite Desk G1 with a Core i7 4790. Decent little machine. I like it, and it's got 16 gigs of RAM, running Windows 11 on it. Yeah, you shouldn't be running Windows 11 on it, but ask me if I care. Anyway, I put all this stuff together. I put together another tote that I use to hold all my personal supplies for my like my chargers, the mouse for that workstation, and a few other items like, I don't know, more USB cables and stuff like that. Throw everything, as well as my duffel bag with my clothes and all that stuff, into the car, and I go out and I go get some other supplies. And also, before I leave, I go and actually, even before I pack my stuff up, before I pack my clothes up, I go do some laundry just to make sure I have some clean clothes to go to jump into when I go to the con. And right around 8 or so in the morning, I go ahead and visit a nearby Arco, tank up on fuel, and then go start driving out to the con. Although actually I go by way of the San Mateo Bridge, because I need to go to San Mateo to go up to the computer basically central computers to go pick up an extra Cisco console cable because one of my switches is in use there. I go and go pick up some additional supply. I pick up that supply, and I'm within about another 12 minutes. I'm at the venue. I go and park the car, start unloading. I go check in to say and start saying hi to people, and one of the first people I run into, apart from some of my colleagues I've been only Discord talking to maybe days and weeks before, I'd actually seen a couple of them several weeks before, putting together some of the machines that would be used for con purposes, and I would actually see even more of them as I arrive at con, and I get there, and people are starting to hear me, and it's like, oh, I recognize that voice. It can only be Katt. Yeah, it is me. So I start bumping into people, and one of the first people I bump into when I hit the atrium is none other than Puzzle Pulsar, and it's like great to run into him. Finally, after having done so many streams with him, as well as of course watching a few streams, and it was a lot of fun. Finally bumping into him, and at one point he also tells me that Chuck D. Marmot, a mutual friend of ours, along with Luna Miura, basically told him to tell me hi, and of course at some point during the con, and then of course that message happened as well. So, and on top of that, here's another hi to you, Chuck, if you happen to be watching, or watch the VOD later on if it's not if this is not live. So anyway, I go ahead and a little bit later, one of my other friends doesn't arrive on the scene until considerably later, and he is the one I'm rooming with, so I can take some more of my personal effects up there. I go and help one of my other guys in the IT department do some of the dry runs, so that computer certainly came in handy because I forgot to bring my credentials for OffKai. The OffKai stuff that I normally use in order to process documents and stuff like that and make them available. And it's like, oh crap. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's that machine. Yes, I have my phone that can do that, but the machine's probably better than that. So we go dig it out, put it together. We do dry runs, and everything's working fine. And a little bit later, we start I go and start bringing my personal effects in so I can go room with my one of my colleagues who happens to be in the gaming hall, and in fact he's also a good friend of the friend of mine who actually brought me on board at Fanime all these years ago, and of course I've been there up until last year, and this year a good many of us decided to jump ship and join OffKai instead. And my friends who did the gaming room over at Fanime did the same thing at OffKai. I went a different route, and I had so much fun doing it. It was something I really enjoyed. Let's see, and of course I also ran into Nyaru at when I was touring the site, just seeing where everything is and saying hi to everyone. So I said hi to Nyaru when I went over to the community stage, and I just went and did a whole bunch of other walking around, seeing how things are going to look, and it's like just think, in a few in a day it's gonna be real, and just looking around. I go and look I just go take a peek into the vendors hall and stuff like that, because I always love going to there, and especially Artist Alley. That's one of my favorite places of any con, to see what all these people do. And on top of that, a lot of these artists happen to also be very well-known VTubers, which I'll get into shortly. So day one, Friday. Let's see. One of the people I ran into was Bria Cookiebox. She is an absolute sweetheart. She does rigging, and she's over on YouTube, so go check her out. And a little bit later in the morning, I would check in at V4 Mirai's Lunalia panel, which is their 3rd gen people, which includes 4 4 talents, Alias Anono, Dr. Nova A, I think is what it's called. And I'm not sure if it's REM or Rem Kaneshibari and Yumi the Witch. And they had an absolutely hilarious panel. It was fun to watch the interaction between themselves, as well as the interactions between them and the audience. And it was always fun to watch that. And a little bit later, I would check in with the VDETA panel, which includes, let's see, Elias Delaria, Iri Viridis, Kitty Spica, and my favorite of the 4, which is Mozumi Pichi, absolute sweetheart. And so they had this little game show, which is basically a lot of VTuber trivia, saying who's like, for example, showing Oshi marks, playing original music from various either original music or covers from various VTubers, seeing who could identify that. And they were just there were awarding prizes. It was a lot of fun to watch that and learned a thing or two from that. And on top of that, one of the things I didn't realize was, one of the questions was, who was the first American, or rather more accurately, not American, I'm sorry, English speaking VTuber agency? How many people can name that? And that was one of the questions that was asked on that panel. So I'm going to ask that question here now. Who was the first English-speaking VTuber agency? Anyone? Anyone want to take a shot at that one? Yeah, that's only fair, because not everybody necessarily knows. And one of the things they were talking about is, yes, KF16 has it. It is Sundaria. Sundaria was the very first ever English-speaking VTuber agency. And I think it formed in 2020 or 2021 and probably dissolved maybe a year or two later, which is kind of sad. But yeah, that was one of the earliest. English-speaking VTuber agencies, and another one just recently dissolved, and that would be Prism Project, which I will get to in a little bit. And I also got to see their talents a little bit later in the evening. And also another little interesting bit during the VDETA panel. One of the contestants happened to be somebody I knew they would at some point possibly come to OffKai. Somebody I've known since before I ever became a VTuber. And that would be Noriboshi Ariel. And it's like, I saw that and it was a wonderful moment for me. And I told the folks over at I told the VDETA folks that that particular panel gave me a moment to treasure, because this is a person I've known for a while. I've known her since 2018, 2019 or so. And we finally met that day, and and I saw her throughout the weekend, and right now she's having difficulty in getting back home on the East Coast, and it was Ariel, very cool person. Very cool person, I can confirm. Yep, I know. And I had the absolute honor of actually meeting her in person. Actually, I need to take a look at something real quick. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Later in the evening, I watched another panel. It's by a group called Prima, which are some of the old Prism Project talents, which were Rita Kamishiro, Hina Penguin, Jun Akane, Nana Asteria, and I think they were actually, one of them was Less One, I believe, and of course the final one being Ami Amami. And they talked about the various differences between being an independent VTuber, or sometimes we call them indie, and a lot of people call it INDIE. I use INDY because I took the startup screen from a Silicon Graphics indie and turned it into my title screen. But anyway, the point being is that they talked about the differences between what independent VTubers and agency VTubers have, what kind of pros and cons they have. The pros being, for example, in the case of assets or any kind of legal action that may need to be taken, the agency actually has the resources to lodge any kind of legal action if they need to take any. That's just I'm speaking hypothetically, of course. I don't know. I don't think they ever needed anything like that. They're talking about also assets that you may not necessarily be able to keep. 90% of the time you won't anyway. Like, for example, when HoloLive China dissolved, one of them actually, one of their talents was on Twitch, and one of the things she said is she was trying very hard to try and buy her model from Cover Corp, but it wasn't happening. And also talking about when it comes to artwork, it's not as easy to deal with as an indie. I mean, as an agency VTuber as it is as an indie. In fact, a lot of the stuff that happened, especially to Palma Rainpuff, who would ultimately be, I had actually followed her before she became Palma Rainpuff, but now she is back as being a VTuber and actually appeared at OffKai Expo, and that would be Mint Phantom. Or Maid Mint as she's sometimes called. And basically she was doing a lot of the stuff that otherwise she would do as an independent VTuber, but and I remember hearing about some of the stuff that happened during one of her membership streams. She actually, when she was getting ready to graduate, she apparently opened up her membership streams, showed them on there, and then everybody got to watch them, and False ID showed them on his channel, or showed excerpts from same, and then they would all get privated, unfortunately, so we never got to see much of anything from there. But yeah, basically a lot of that stuff was laid bare, and apparently Pomu Rainpuff, and to a different degree, I forget her Niji Sanji self's name, but that would be independent VTuber Sayu, whom I actually got to meet on Sunday night as people were dispersing, heading their separate ways, or going to their hotels and relaxing for the night. But anyway, it seems like those two were the indicators of what would ultimately come, and of course happening in the form of Selene Tatsuki, who of course we now know, and another person I followed since before she became part of Niji Sanji English, and since she of course was fired from Niji Sanji English, Palma Rainpuff of course graduated. And anyway, Selene Tatsuki, that would be Doki Bird. So a lot of that stuff, and of course what happened there is a lot of stuff ended up happening, and we learned a lot more about what happened because of the way some information came out from their side. Basically means they should never have gotten it, and they should never been able to get it in the first place. Developments upon developments upon developments. Yeah, you could say that. But basically, how it ties to the original. But I digress on this whole thing. Let's go back to the original thing, which is independent VTuber or indies versus agency VTubers. Basically, with independent VTubers, you can pretty much stream whatever you like. You don't have to worry about permissions or anything like that. And many game companies are pretty lax about that for independents. I'm not sure if agencies have to go and negotiate with the game programs, the game developers, but if you ever go look at a HoloLive one, and probably a lot of the agency VTuber streams, you'll see a notation on there that says, with special arrangements from Bethesda, like for example when Inugami Korone did her run of Doom 2016, and of course later on she would get a Doog Easter egg in I believe Doom Eternal, which I thought was the whole notion I thought was kind of cool, because apparently the folks at id Software within Bethesda rather really dug how she enjoyed it so much. Apparently Negotiation stuff is more complicated for Japan-based agencies because they're subject to different copyright laws. Yes, that is absolutely true. Japanese copyright law is extremely strict, far more so than it is here in the States. A lot of it is coming their ass because HoloLive got bit by not getting permissions first at one point in time. That makes sense. So basically covering your assets, as it were. Yeah. But yeah, not to mention the fallout from what happened. I mean, actually, the dissolution of HoloLive China, and basically was the fallout of what happened between what Hachima, Akai Hato, and Kiryu Koko, now Keisan over at V Shoujo, would ultimately find. I mean, that basically was a case of. Apparently they said something and they didn't realize what the gravity of what they were saying was, and I'm not going to say it here because I'm not going to get myself into that same trouble. Not necessarily because I'm an agency VTuber, but because, which I'm certainly not by any stretch of the imagination. Dear God, I mean, I'm pretty threadbare here in my own studio as it is, even though I've got 4 computers doing this actual stream. I'm seated at one of them and the other 3 are behind me, and that's not counting any of the ancillary machines that run the network at all. That was sure is an incident. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, that was definitely an interesting time to say the least. And but anyway, that was a very interesting panel. But yeah, they were talking about how, I mean, their time, and of course, one of the ones, it was something rather innocuous from what I remember. Like, they were just chatting and reading about metrics on viewership or something. Yeah, that's exactly what they were doing. And the fact they mentioned one thing that really, really upset China, got them in big trouble, and they ended up getting suspended. But that punishment was more symbolic than anything else, if for no other reason than to just say, we did it, okay, you happy? So I don't think they ever suffered any real, actual, quote-unquote, punishment necessarily. They just weren't allowed to stream for, like, I believe a month or so. I forget the exact length of time, but yeah, it was an absolute shit show for and in the moment. But yeah, it was nasty, and unfortunately one of the results was that HoloLive China had to disband because unfortunately it and it was too sad. One of them actually was a really, really good English speaker too, and she had actually just started her own English channel on YouTube, which I really wanted to see and support her in doing, because she sounds like a really sweet girl too. I forget her name off the top of my head, but yeah, that was a big and ugly mess. Anyway, back to the now that I'm really thoroughly digressed, let's go back to the con for a minute. Let's see, Saturday. That's where the bulk of the con was, basically. Touring around on the atrium, seeing a lot of people, a lot of the industry stuff there. There was I can't remember. Lucid was the big one that was on the atrium, and then of course off the atrium, across from ConOps, directly across from ConOps is the industry area where you have folks from Phase Connect and a couple of other and a couple of software vendors out there, including one software developer I actually met there, and we have since followed each other on our various social media as well as our streaming platforms. So, and I checked, and one of them I actually saw on the actual atrium, demonstrating a motion tracking piece of motion tracking software. It was originally developed in Linux using Godot as the engine, and basically running on a Steam Deck that's running not Stream Deck but Steam Deck that was loading that had a distribution of Linux on there using an XFCE based window manager with a theme that makes it look like Windows 95. And it was fun watching that, and we exchanged contact information there as well, and that was fun. And I met several other streamers that I'd either seen last year or met for the first time. I ran into PFP UFO, who was with Kawa last year, but ended up going. I'm not sure if she's still with Kawa or if she's back to being. I believe she's back to being indie now. I saw her again this year, like I did last year, and we just checked in, said hi. Speaking of Kawa, I met one of their she is also a VTuber, but she's like one of their personnel, and that was Moo, and we caught up and just chatted briefly, and also another one I happened to catch on there, who happened to be a Lucid talent. I was gonna go and catch her. Talking to her VTuber self, but I actually caught her IRL, and that would be T the Khajiit, absolute sweetheart. She saw it and it's like, I didn't realize you were coming, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on staff, and we shared some nice words together, and just and on top of that, she was an absolute sweetheart. On the Kawa Discord server, when I came down with COVID-19 in late 22, she mentioned it would be T the Khajiit who had mentioned to me about Paxlovid, and as it turned out, I ended up getting a prescription of it, and that really helped me take care of that. I'd already had the vaccines on board, so those two would probably make my dealing with COVID so much easier. Yeah, Kawa stopped being an agency a while ago and just does merchandising stuff. So many absolute sweethearts I love to be found in the VTuber ecosystem, I see. Yeah, not to mention other people have said, including another friend whom I would see, I believe, right around, I'm not sure if it was Thursday or Friday, and that would be Zumi, the the cheese-loving, meme-loving mouse. Who plays a variety of video games and is often seen doing your mom. That's right, she's doing your mom. And I believe actually she's streaming right now, but we're not quite ready to rate anybody at this point, but I wanted to at least mention that. She mentioned on her coverage of her experience on OffKai is that everybody has been absolutely super chill, and both in terms of VTubers and their fans. People have been completely respectful of each other, which is a wonderful thing to see. And I myself had and I bumped into a lot of other wonderful people there. And let's see, what else? Saturday. Oh, and that's right, Saturday morning, first thing. After I get up and I look at the time and I'm like, okay, let's go. It's getting pretty close to launch time for Starliner. I go down to panel 1, and after getting permission from one of my higher ups to say, can I watch this for a little bit? And he's like, sure, okay. And so Puzzle and I come down and watch it, and right around the T-3 minutes 47 second mark, I think it was, the GLS signals basically inserts a hold instruction into the system, basically holding the countdown because it couldn't contact a redundant GLS to make sure that it had any kind of sufficient redundancy. And right around the time they were getting ready to scrub, in comes this nice girl. Turns out to be Vivi-chan the Dragon, whom I believe is one of my earliest followers on Twitch and Twitter. And it's like, and I approach her, and she was like putting her stuff down, getting ready, and it's like, you're Vivi-chan, right? And I look at it, it's like, it's Vivi-chan. Oh my goodness, Katt Phloxworthy. And we share a nice couple of words. And it's like, it's finally good to see you. And she can be pretty, her stuff can be pretty raunchy on channel, but just talking to her, she's an absolute sweetheart. and introduce her to Puzzle, and we were talking a little bit about what we were watching, which was, of course, the attempt, which ended up getting scrubbed because of technical reasons, which we didn't know at the time. We just knew that the GLS was the trigger. We didn't know that the GLS was not just the trigger, but also the cause. In this case, the GLS said it couldn't find sufficient redundancy for itself to continue the countdown, so it did that, and it cycled back to T minus 4 minutes, which of course is where the terminal count starts for the vehicle. And let's see what else happened that day. I would cruise around the Artist Alley, which I never got a chance to do until that point. Yes, Epic Moments rocket launch scrub. Yep. Must be surreal experience surrounding a lot of these people for the first time. I'll have to spend some. I'll have to have some such experience sooner or later. Yes, if you can get out here to California. It's in Burlingame, which is south on the peninsula in San Mateo County. It's by San Mateo, where it's close to SFO. It was at the Hyatt Regency SFO this year. We don't know what's going on next year, but we already know we have outgrown that venue already. I mean, last year I think it had about. I think the numbers were about half that, but this year blew expectations out of the water. We actually had to cap it as tickets were being sold, mainly because the logic was they wanted to make sure that all the halls actually had all the stages, both stages had reasonable amount of attendance, and on top of that, there would be panels for people to go to. There'd be there are the meet and greets and all sorts of activities that people could get into, and other stuff like that. And on top of that, there was other stuff like the night sale where people go and sell their wares, and on top of that, do some of the other stuff that would otherwise be considered adults only. So, but basically, they wanted to make sure that there were I mean, if they didn't want to have too many people to the point where not everybody could get, I mean, where people at least had a reasonable chance of getting something. I lived in the San Francisco Peninsula my entire life, and it wasn't too much stopping me from going. That's true. Okay, so you are in the area. You just didn't go this year. But yeah, get your ass up to OffKai the next time we do it. So. And a lot of that's going to happen, and a lot of that's going to probably start before too long, in a couple months. And if anybody wants to join OffKai staff, come to the OffKai Discord server and just drop a note saying, which is what I did. Drop by the OffKai Discord server, say I'd like to join staff doing thus and so. And of course, I mean, I was in the IT and AV department, and I did a lot of crazy stuff this year. But my main one was writing documentation, and I had loads of fun doing it. And apparently this was something that was direly needed too. And like I said, and like I was telling a lot of my colleagues who were, especially the people who were saying, we need this document, we need it ASAP. And so I had a total blast doing that. So anyway, let's see. Saturday, what else happened? And like I said, I was going down into the Artist Alley and ran into a few artists that I'd seen last year, like Ugu Bear, for example. She is an absolute sweetheart. And on top of that, I love her model so much. It is so cute. And on top of that, the face tracking is just awesome. Much like Soyuz, for example. It's very, very similar to Soyuz. I think they both use something like VBridger for that. I don't know for sure, but yeah, I love the face tracking on both of their models. Let's see. And another one who I knew was an artist, but I didn't know she, and I did ultimately find out she was there, and that was Ichika Maya, another absolute sweetheart. And just exchanged some nice friendly words with her just to say, yeah, exactly. Hello there. Hello there. Teams, thank you for coming in over on YouTube. Oh yeah, OffKai went down. Yeah, it was a blast. I really had fun. Not just attending it, but actually working it as well, and met a lot of wonderful people in the process, especially in the and I've been in the con scene for like a little more than a decade now. Actually, more than a decade. I actually started in 2006 with a con in Fresno, and I started really doing it more continuously, starting in 11 with that con in Fresno, but doing it far more continuously starting in 2013 onward. And my next con that I'm going to be doing will be MagWest, which will be in San Jose sometime in September. I don't remember the exact dates, but I'll be sure to post that on my Twitter and all my other social media, so you can at least, if you want to catch up with me, I'll be there. So anyway, let's see. Let's see. All I know is another friend of mine went, oh yeah, just about everybody had a friend going to OffKai. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people there, and on top of that, there were some other, in the industry room, there was another one, Blurp was one there that I wanted to check out. I guess I'd seen them, I just never really paid them much attention, but now that I've actually been to their booth and saw their stuff, I'm going to probably take a look at it. And another one I met over at the industry hall was Lilybell, which I was talking with her, and one of the things that we'd mentioned is the fact that she is she fashions herself having to do with an airline. And one of the things that I asked her was, quick question, Airbus or Boeing? And her response was, I'm not so sure I want to answer that, because I don't think I want to know what happened. I don't know if I'm not sure I want to know what happens to me, especially at the hands of Boeing. Since we're talking Boeing. Anyway, it was, the thing is, she provided me a great laugh, and played a couple of real quick things, got some Japanese snacks out of that, so that was great. I had a lot of fun there too. They had a little sort of a toss the ball game, and it was fun. And there was an agency that I met a couple of VTubers from that is based in Singapore, but it looks like they have talents all right now. The ones that they have right now in their first gen are pretty much right around the Eastern Asia area, as well as the Philippines, Singapore, Japan, I think, are the main ones that they represented that I could tell. Met a couple of their talents, and one of them looks very amazingly like Irani EO15 from HoloLive Indonesia. That's mainly because her model was made by the same person who did EOFI's model. And also one of the other ones was by Muna Hoshinova's artist. And just met them, and one of them was like, I told him about my spaceflight stuff, and she was really interested. I told one of them that I did spaceflight streams, and she seemed keenly interested in that, and I hope she got a chance to see this one, because this was, of course, this was an important one, because this was and as they were saying in the stream, this is only the 6th new crewed vehicle made in America. Basically, you had, I don't mean to digress again, but anyway, we had Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, the Space Shuttle, then Crew Dragon, and now CST-100 Starliner. The next one, of course, will hopefully be next year. I know I kept saying in my Christmas cards, in 2024, Artemis 2 will be the one to possibly have the same experience that Apollo 8 did. And of course, that got pushed back to 2025. That'll be the 7th one, which will, of course, be Orion atop SLS, which I really enjoyed covering last year and almost had me completely tongue-tied at liftoff. But anyway, let's see. And another one I got to meet, who's another one who I followed for a while, and that's Cordy Ojo. She is a really, she's a queen, an ice queen, and she is on both Twitch and YouTube. So go check her out. I will probably do a Twitter dump of everybody I met and that I can remember and talk to. that I can remember, and just shout them out. And so keep an eye out for that. And on Saturday evening, I would catch Zumi's panel, where she talked about burnout, dealing with burnout, or at least staving it off as a content creator. And a lot of the stuff she said was, when she did the research for that, it looks like she really did so much research, because some of the stuff that they gave, like for example, is take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your emotional well-being, and even some of the stuff for the hand stuff is, some of the stuff is like, interestingly enough, I didn't realize that Riot Games actually had a website on their own website that talked about how to keep yourself from getting an RSI, repetitive stress injury, with various exercises, and she included that as part of the thing. And hopefully, as soon as I can find her VOD, I'll have to check in with her so I can get a link for that, and I'll certainly try and link you guys to that. And she talked about various other things, including a lot of stuff that came from various agencies like the National Institutes of Health, as well as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And interestingly enough, another one came from sutterhealth.org, which is based right here in Sacramento. Interestingly enough, they're talking about how much sleep you should get, what nutrition you should do, what stuff you really shouldn't be eating, or more accurately, eating in moderation, such as snacks and stuff like that. One of the things I'm doing right now, I did earlier, is and everything that one of the things that seems to be a common theme among the VTubers rather, is that one of the things they're always asking, are you getting enough water and getting enough sleep? Speaking of, I'm getting a little bit of water right now because it is pretty warm in here. Even though we've got an air conditioner going on, I have multiple computers running in this room, so it can heat the room up pretty thoroughly. But I do have a fan to help blow some of that air around. I'm probably gonna augment that a little bit with a larger fan and other fans placed in other portions of the parts of the room. Yeah, and another artist I would see would come on Sunday, and that would be Clea. She is, not sure if she's American, but she is, I believe, nowadays living, or at least had been living in Japan. And I met her. I mentioned that she was also one of the earliest people I'd followed even before I became a VTuber, and she was thrilled to hear that. And on top of that, she's a pretty talented artist. I looked at her wares and everywhere I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my God, my wallet. I never seem to have enough money to really get some of the stuff I want to do, and that's especially anything from Artist Alley, because I love seeing that stuff. And another person I have an absolute sweet, really soft spot in my heart for, and that would be none other than Phoebe Chan. Phoebe Chan, who is a very, very talented singer and voice actress. And she also came out as being the talent behind Ami, excuse me. Anyway, point being is she is an absolute darling person to be around. She is, and I also caught her up with, I'd been telling her, she knew that I was taking care of my mom, and then I caught her up with caught her up, as well as several other friends who knew about my taking care of my mom, that my mom passed away last year. And it was a lot of that was really because one of the things that OffKai did for me last year, apart from giving me some networking, that was giving me a little bit of a diversion from dealing with my mom's at that point failing health, and she would die the following week after OffKai, which so having that little brief reprieve certainly helped in the matter. But so of course the following week it was, I don't mean to go into something really sad about at this point, but we'll discuss that next time. But anyway, having and on top of that, I escorted her up to ConOps to make sure, because she needed to get her badge. as she needed to get her badge, and apparently she was actually getting it from someone else. And but I figured I didn't know what to do at that point, and I figured the safest thing would be to take her to ConOps, which is always a safe bet, I felt. So I should probably go to sleep so I can wake up before the Starship launch. Thanks for the stream by. All right, thank you for coming by, KF16. I hope you have a great sleep. And like I said, I won't be able to cover the cover IFT4. I'll probably do a recording afterward. So anyway, that was I might do the recording of that again, like in the morning. But yeah, it was kind of funny also. She even mentioned it on her stream. I was just passing through at one point, and I didn't want to bug her because she was talking to someone else. All of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Kat," and I say hi back, and I'm like, I felt like I didn't give it a proper justice, but I made sure to say hi back, and it was a very sweet thing for her to do. It was I mean, I was just going somewhere else. I was doing this in the capacity of my job, and being able to say hi to her again, just being able to check in and connect with her, it was a really good thing. And she is an absolute sweetheart. She is not just talented, and on top of that, she's already published a lot of music. She just recently published a full album, and I need to get that at some point. And normally when I'm streaming on Twitch, I do through the microphone, which was from her second EP, Chill Beats to BuzzTube, Beats being BEE''TS. And of course, you know where that comes. That comes from her love of bees. But yeah, she is very talented and a very sweet person. And if you ever become friends with her, you know you have a wonderful friend in her. I'll say that straight up. And later in the evening on Sunday, like I said earlier, I would happen to run into Sayu. She is about as much of a gremlin in real life as she is on stream. Absolutely fun. I mean, even though it was only just a few seconds that I got to say hi to her, it was fun to just say hi to her and see the kind of person she is. She was hiding behind her standee, just sort of walking around with it and saying, "I'm not here. No, really, I'm not here." Or basically just trying to say basically try to be the standee, as it were. It was funny, but yeah, she's and unfortunately her car got broken into, and even though it was a bag that got stolen, it was a favorite bag, and oh god, I hate when something like that happens. Even though it may be empty, it had personal value to her. And it kind of like what happened to my sister at one point. She got mugged by someone, and her big she had a big bag that she had with her. She didn't have anything particularly valuable in there. She nicknamed it the Blue Hole of Calcutta, and she had it swiped from her, and nothing of value was stolen, but the fact that the bag itself meant something to her really was just an absolutely saddening thing to hear. Was just snatched off her. Although in my sister's case, it was being snatched off her person, which makes it all the more angering to hear. But anyway, that's pretty much what happened. Although the following I find out that my friend that I'm rooming with actually is going to stay into Monday. I was originally going to drive home to Sacramento on Sunday, but by the time I went to one of the parties that was on the hospitality floor, is what we're supposed to call it. By the time I got done, I actually had some alcohol in my system. It was probably for the best that I stayed. And I was planning on staying anyway, even before I had that alcohol in my system, mainly because I was planning. Once I heard that, I thought to myself, I could actually go to the picnic that's on Monday, the post-con picnic for the staff and volunteers. So so that's another reason to go and join up with OffKai staff. They give you a nice thing afterward. Fanime. While it happens on Memorial Day weekend, they usually have what they call Dead Dog, which is the which is the AfterCon party, was that they don't do it until July, early to mid-July, I think it is. And it's like, I don't know, why do they do that? And there's another Twitter out there that talks about all the bad stuff that happened there, and it was like, yeah, I really didn't like what happened to them, what happened there. So, I mean, my longtime friend, Magical Senpai, who operates the gaming hall, one of the leads at Fanime, ended up being one of the leads over at OffKai's gaming hall. He and I basically walked away from Fanime because of some of the stuff that's been going on. All I could say is go look up the words "failed by Fanime," and you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into it here on stream. So anyway, that was my con experience, and I drove after I checked in with a bunch of my colleagues at the picnic. I would then go ahead and pack myself into the car and come back to Sacramento. And yesterday morning, I get up and back to the grind as usual. And then later on, I'd find out, oh, by the way, oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention. The 2 days last week, I only had 2 work days. The Tuesday and the Wednesday. And both of them, I ended up getting overtime, 1 hour each day. And on top of that, the previous day, most of the days that week got an extra hour. So I should get I'm hoping a decently fat paycheck out of that one. Since I had I had 4 days the previous week because the final day was the day before the Memorial Day weekend, and they just wanted us to get us out of there and go and enjoy our weekend. And then we come back. From what I understand, the Tuesday the Monday when people came back, the Monday that I was still in Burlingame, apparently didn't have any OT, and with things happening, my supervisor approached me and said, "You want to do?" I figured I'd ask you, "Do you want to do an hour of overtime?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, fine. I need it anyway." Later that day, he approached the entire team and say, our team lead would go around and say, "Now it's 2 hours." I'm like, "Okay, I'll take it. I desperately need it anyway." So, yeah, basically back to burning the candle at both ends again. Although in this case, the other end happens to be just I'm trying to get back into streaming again, something resembling a regular basis, and so anyway, that's how things went for OffKai, as well as the time up until the present day. So anyway, that was one hell of a weekend, and I gotta tell you, from a personal point of view, the last almost 4.5 years, I've been living in a crisis mode, although to a much lesser degree for the previous 9, because I came back to Sacramento in 2011. Mom still was able to drive, and in October she stopped driving that year, and I did all the driving in the household. And she would still continue to be active in the. I'm going to make this last part basically a bit more personal, because I've been holding back a lot of this stuff for the last few years because it has been really, really hard, including even starting my time as a VTuber. A lot of that time I spent taking care of my mother. And part of this was sort of an escape from that. And even then, one of the things I mentioned when I was there, I was basically a teetotaler during a lot of the time my mom was home, mainly because I wanted to make sure that I'd be fresh and ready to drive if I absolutely needed to, like to take mom to the ER or wherever. And I guess this was the first time in a... God damn it. First time in a long time I've been able to recreationally drink. I mean, not to the point where I'm blacking out, but just to get just a tiny bit tipsy. And I'm going to get a little bit real here, because June of 22 was probably one of the darkest times of my life. I had been given the news that we were going to be moving out of that house. And I'm really sorry that this is taking such a dark turn. But I do need to speak a little bit about this because, like I said, I've been in crisis mode in some degree or another for the last at least 4 years, if not even until now. My crisis deepened in 2022 when quite a bit by when I was informed that we would be moving from that house. So that perky nature that you heard from me belied a much deeper thing that happened. I'm not sure if I want to just continue this or maybe wait for another stream. But this is kind of important to me because I was really in a bad position. I was in a very bad headspace for the next several days. The last time, I mean, that was the last time, that particular time was also something I decided to get a little bit of alcohol and get myself into a stupor. And there's some things deeper that there are things darker that I would go into, but I don't think this is the time to do it. I do need to be open about it a bit more soon, but let's just say I did not take the news very well. And basically other people stepped in. That's pretty much what I have to say, not just at the family level, but at other levels as well. And I was out of circulation for about a week and a half. I finally got back into circulation latter part of June, and I would find myself living in a new place. The place I'd lived from late June up until like about late January of this year. I'm now living with with one of my coworkers at the office. He had overheard that I was trying to find someplace that would cost less in rent, and so I moved here, and that's helped a bit. But anyway, after that, things were okay. Mom had been moved to a home, and at that point she started her health would actually start to deteriorate, and she did have one hospital stay, and I didn't think it would necessarily be a big deal. Fast forward, she would have several more hospital stays, and the last one that she had, I would go see her, and I was telling her, in case this is the last time I'd ever get to see you, first of all, I love you. Thank you for everything. I'm going to this place called OffKai Expo next weekend, and I'm really going to be enjoying this weekend, and I'm hoping to enjoy myself. She looks at me and she looked at me with this look of, don't make too much of a big deal of it. Except that would be the very last time I'd ever have anything resembling a real conversation with her. Because the following Thursday, after con, my supervisor brought me into the office. It was work related, nothing really big, just we were talking to someone else at another location. We were talking about something related to one of the things we were working on, and she said, "Be ready in case I need to call you back in." I'm like, okay, go back, do my work. She comes out, pulls me into the office, closes her door, hands me her phone, and I identify myself, and next thing I know, it's my aunt on the phone. my mom had gone into a state where it was like, and apparently she'd been speaking to my supervisor. My aunt was speaking to my supervisor shortly before she called me in. She brought me in and handed the phone to me. And she basically I think she knew how I was going to take the news that I was about to be given, and that my mom's health nosedived that day. And I drove down to Lodi, which is in northern part of San Joaquin County, just over the county line from Sacramento County, to go see her. And I couldn't do anything but just cry. I mean, after my sister and her wife were there, all I could do was cry. And I told her that I had the great time at OffKai, and I was told I could stay as long as I wanted to, but I felt the only thing I could do was leave, because I actually couldn't handle myself at that point. One of the few times I could not handle myself. I went in the car and just absolutely bawled my eyes out. Actually, I was bawling my eyes out even there, and I called my aunt, and basically she said, "Don't want you to drive home just yet." Because I was in no condition at that point to drive home. And collected myself as best I could after a few minutes, and I was talking with her for a bit. And she offered to be on the phone with me, just as she offered to be on the phone with me as I drove down there. She was somebody I desperately needed to have by my side at that point in time, because I was really, really sad at that point in time. My supervisor told me to take the rest of the day off and not worry about Friday, and there was supposed to be an overtime on Saturday, and I ended up opting out of that as well. So I would then go home. After I got home, I pretty much slept the rest of the day, and then I get a phone call the following morning from my aunt saying that my mom had passed away that morning. My sister had called me and asked me if I wanted to go and see her body. I originally go and see her, and I said no, and then I changed my mind. I'm glad I did, though. I'm glad I did go. I didn't stay all that long. I think I only stayed maybe a couple minutes at most, and just said, just like I did with my dad, and just said my final goodbye to her, and just like before, my aunt was on the phone with me for the rest of the trip home. And I would sleep throughout the rest of the day, and I woke up. I mean, I was looking at the time, and it's like, damn, this day has been long. It was, I would later write on my Twitter, it was the longest day of my life. And that was waking up to learn that my mother had died, going out to see her, going home, doing what I could to take care of myself. And by the time midnight rolled around, I wrote it, said this was the longest day of my life, and I'm glad it's finally over. That was June 23rd of last year. 1 week short of the 17th anniversary of my father's death, which was June 30th, 2006. And to the folks at OffKai, especially the folks who ran it last year, and the folks who attended it last year, and whether it's an attendee, a vendor, a VTuber, whether it's a guest or a congoer or whatever. I owe you a debt of gratitude I cannot even hope to repay. You gave me that reprieve I desperately needed in a time of dire need. I figured the best way to repay it is by actually becoming part of it. And again, I have a debt of gratitude I can't even hope to begin to repay. I'm sorry this ended up becoming this ended up becoming so personal. But it really means this much to me. It's finally giving me the ability to pull myself out of that hole I've been in for especially the last 2.5 years. Almost 2 years, practically. And, it's been a long time. This has been a long time coming, and I really appreciate everybody's company. Whether you've been somebody I've watched, somebody I've rated, somebody I've spoken to, whether at a con, in a Discord call, especially from Brushfire Glow, one of Pia UFO's moderators. Whose stream I finally got to catch and followed, and she said, "Oh, you sound like this. You sound like a radio announcer." And it's like, that's just about what everybody says. Whether you're a con goer, whether you're a con guest, a vendor, any of the staff that I've worked with, any of the people I've seen, anybody who's attended my streams, anybody I've collaborated with, you guys over the past couple of years, it really helped me keep me grounded, because I won't go into detail what happened in late June just now, but you guys are pulling me out of a funk I've been in for a while, and I wanted to make a difference at OffKai because you guys helped make a difference for me. And I can't hope to repay it all. This is truly what it means to me, because while there's definitely been talk about how Fanime doesn't exactly treat their staff very well, the folks at OffKai you guys really mean a lot to me. Your camaraderie, the teamwork, everything. I don't think I could have functioned as well as I could have without your help, and I'm glad I was able to bring something to the table. And on that note, I and say thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for enjoying not just the space flight, but my enjoyment of OffKai and the deeper meaning it holds for me personally, because OffKai 2023 was what got started me getting was what helped keep me from losing myself in something that was about to go really bad for me. And 2024 has helped me start giving me the ability not just to get out of that funk along with other real life things, but also allowed me to help repay that debt of gratitude. So, and I felt one of the things I felt was also, not only did I want to make a contribution to OffKai Expo as a staff member, I wanted to leave my mark. And I think those documents serve as that mark. And on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and find someone to rate on Twitch. Again, I'm really sorry this ended up becoming super personal, because this I've been keeping a lot of these feelings close to my chest for a while. It's a very, very hard thing to deal with. And I imagine anybody who's lost a loved one, whether it's a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, a cousin, a sibling, a child, a friend, whomever. And I've had a good many of those happen in my life. I'm there with you. Like, for example, another friend of mine, Artigalia Arudi, lost her father recently, and I feel for her. And I really, really, really feel for anybody who has lost a loved one. And of course, we all have our respective communities as well as each other to help keep things from getting bad. And I appreciate all of your support through these years thus far. So let's see who we can raid. I know who we can raid. It's another VTuber I actually photographed this weekend, and that was Honey. She right now is playing Grounded, which I guess is a new game that's come out recently. So let us... Oh gosh, she's like 2 hours and 56 minutes into her stream. Oh God, I hope she's not going to end soon, but let's go say hi to her anyway, just because we can. On that note, let me go ahead and get you some, let me see if I can do, let's see if we can have some fun today. I'm not going to worry about subscription raids either, subscription things with my emotes in it. We're just going to have a little fun. I'm going to put this raid text in the chat. And you go to it. Let's go ahead and set up the raid. Let's end this on a happy note. She was... I mean, I got lots of nice people saying a lot of nice likes from the picture, because she's a really, really nice person. And I figured let's go ahead and return the favor by hitting her stream and saying hi. And let me see what's going on. I'm gonna go turn on. I want to mute my own stream real quick, and I want to turn up hers. I'm gonna turn up the volume that I have for my. Oh, someone else just raided her, but let's go. Okay, let's go ahead and hit her stream real quick. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and get the raid set up real quick. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this one. There we go. Oh, God damn it. That's not what I wanted. Try that again. There we go. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, stream preview. Okay. Let's go ahead and start the raid. All right. In any event, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your keeping me company, especially with me talking about my situation. It's been quite the time, and I appreciate your company, and I appreciate having you by as I talk about my time at OffKai. So in any event, thank you so much, and as always, Slava Ukraini, and I hope you guys have a great evening. So in the meantime, I hope you have a great one, and I'll probably try and stream the IFT4 rather tomorrow. Well, not stream it, but do a playback of it after I get home from work. So until then, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you then, hopefully. And Tyranno Zero, thank you. You bet. Thank you. And I will see you guys later, and have a great one. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for hearing me out on this, because it really means a lot to me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.